Right, everyone. So we're reading here from Inside the Ropes Wrestling. Jade Cargill and Naomi's WrestleMania clash will break a WWE streak that's lasted almost 2 decades. Following Friday's edition of SmackDown, Jade Cargill versus Naomi was made official for WrestleMania 41 later this month. At the time of writing, it's unknown which night of WrestleMania the long awaited grudge match will take place. Regardless of who comes out on top, however, both women are set to make history on the grandest stage of them all. As first noted by Russell Ops, Cargill and Naomi's clash is the first non title women's match to feature on a WrestleMania in almost 20 years. The last took place all the way back at WrestleMania 22 in 2006 when Tori Wilson and Candice Michelle faced off in a Playboy pillow fight. In addition, Cargill and Naomi will also make history by competing in the first WrestleMania women's match without any stipulations or titles on the line. So pretty interesting, right? That pretty interesting stat. Now, I don't know why they're not putting look, I'm a sucker for stipulations. To me, this is like the perfect match to kind of have in a in like some kind of street fight or something like that. Maybe I'm dumb, but yeah, I just think that would be pretty cool. But like I said, maybe that's not the case. Maybe it should just be a one-on-one. I'm sure it's going to be gruesome as hell. But I thought this was a pretty interesting stat. So thank you all for watching, and we will see you next time. All right, everyone. So we're reading here from Ringside News. A fan on Instagram claimed to have spoken with Lesnar and alleged that the Beast incarnate told him he had retired from entering competition and wouldn't be returning to WWE. While that has not been confirmed by wrestling Lesnar or WWE in any capacity, the post has fueled growing speculation about whether Lesnar's legendary run is truly over. This comes after Lesnar was spotted at a steakhouse in Austin, Texas, when approached by Ringside News correspondent and asked about a potential return to WWE. Lesnar reportedly gave a vague response. We will see. That brief answer only added to the mystery surrounding his current status. So I don't know. This is one of those things that, he's, he's at his position right now that, in my opinion, I would probably be shocked to see him return. And the reason I think that is because I think a lot of Brock Lesnar's returning and time in WWE, he had a love for Vince. He talked about if you go back and watching the Pat McAfee show, Lesnar's interview on there. And so that's one of those things where I don't know if Lesnar wants to return, to the company if Vince isn't going to be there, right? I think having Vince there is probably one of the reasons he continued to come back as he did. He probably trusted Vince in terms of his creative and things like that. And now, when Vince isn't there, it might feel a little bit different. Now, does that mean he's never going to come back? Probably not. Certainly we know because we saw it with Triple H, right? Triple H, when he was overseas and he was asked about Lesnar, he at first said, yeah, well, it's up to him if he wants to come back. And then, we got updates from the legal team like, well, not right now, not right now because all these legal matters have to be figured out. So I don't think we know until after that, right? Once all the legal things are gone, then there's a potential maybe he comes back, right? There's a potential that he ends up coming back, but I don't think we're going to truly know anything until that point. And I'm not sure we could trust, the retirement post here, right? If he told one of the reporters that he wasn't retired, or we'll see, I don't think he would have told this person, oh, we're definitely retiring, right? So thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time. All right, everyone, we're reading here from Wrestle Talk. The official WWE account has deleted the clip of ending to the Charlotte Flair and Tiffany Stratton segment where Stratton referenced Flair's divorce and Flair claimed Stratton's boyfriend, Ludwig Kaiser, has been in her DM. So I am reading now a bunch of different reports, and we're going to probably get into them even in future videos, maybe even in more detail. But it's, I didn't think at first, that this necessarily meant that it was real beef between the two because I thought this is perfect for WWE, right? They're able to get this out there and then they delete them and it makes it feel real. Other reports are now saying this might be a little bit more real than we thought. And this is interesting. It's one of those things you'll love in a way because it's telling such a good story. That's kind of one of the things you're like, this is kind of cool. This is kind of cool. It's telling this great story. But at the same time, it looks like this is a real feud between these two. And I don't know when this occurred. I don't know why this occurred. Maybe we'll figure that out more as time goes on. But certainly this is heating up. This is now being talked about as much as any feud because of all of this stuff that's happening. So I would never put it past WWE to really be able to even I wouldn't put it past them to be leaking to these dirt sheets as well about, oh yeah, yeah, that was you know, that was a real thing. Yeah, that's real. I wouldn't put it past them doing that, but so far it looks like this is actually the real deal. So put in the comment section below what you think, and thank you all for watching. Everyone, so we got some more details on the behind the scenes between Charlotte Flair and Tiffany Stratton. This is from eWrestling News. PW Insider has shared an update on both women going off script during their promo segment. Multiple sources stated that the segment deviated from the original plan, suggesting that Flair and Stratton's personal remarks were unscripted. Furthermore, WrestleVotes reported last night that both women spoke very little of what was in the rundown for them and frequently went off script. Stratton's remarks is thought to have been in response to how Flair ate her up in a previous SmackDown segment. Some speculated that Stratton was trying to assert herself to reclaim the spotlight in front of a pro Stratton crowd in Chicago. Others believe that the segment went off the rails towards the end and ultimately benefited no one. Several individuals also reportedly noted that Flair was taken aback by the crowd's reaction, which made Stratton's insults hit harder. One source remarked that Flair's comments about Kaiser after Stratton rolled out of the ring and began to leave seemed like a flailing shot from a boxer who didn't realize they were KO'd and that the Queen was obviously gotten to. The personal jabs were later edited from the segment on WWE's YouTube channel. The unedited version remains accessible on the WWE and USA Network YouTube channel. Flair will challenge Stratton for the WWE Women's Championship at WrestleMania 41. Okay, so I don't know what to believe with this. I can 100% see WWE kind of leaking to these places and just kind of making this up. I can see that, but I also could see there being a little bit of bad blood here, and I don't necessarily fully know why. It's like I don't think, and I'm not in the business, so maybe it's something that people in the business know more than I do. But that segment where everybody was like, "Oh, did she bury Tiffany Stratton?" I didn't get that feel from it. Maybe it was maybe they thought they were going on script and Charlotte Flair just kind of did her own thing. Maybe that's what upset Tiffany, but I can't wait to see how this goes. I don't view this as a problem really. Uh, I think this is just making for good TV, which is the whole point. Now, you don't want two people hating each other, right? But if at the end of this they can figure it all out and have a kumbaya moment, that's great. But for now, I think this is building a really good feud. You're going up against such good feuds, you kind of got to do something like this. I mean, you're going up against John Cena's heel turn. You're going up against CM Punk, now having Paul Heyman on his side. You got to compete with that. And so, hey, this one to me, out of the two women's championship matches here, this one is my favorite right now. We'll see if, Io and Bianca and Rhea can, move it up a notch. But as long as everything's okay behind the scenes, this has been fantastic TV, in my opinion. All right, everyone. So Bully Ray says he wants to see more passion from this star. Here's what he said. EO has good matches, but I need to see more out of EO. I need to see more passion out of EO, need to see more fight out of EO. And right now, EO does feel like a third wheel here, despite being the champion. I have a lot of faith in these ladies that they're going to tear the house down at WrestleMania, but last week didn't do it for me. And this week, I kind of found myself disinterested. So, I gotta say, I disagree with Bully Ray on this one, and actually, we don't disagree often on it, to be completely honest with you. I think he usually has a lot of good takes, but I do disagree with him on that. I think Io Sky's character is fine. I think it's perfect, because it seems to be kind of who she is, right? And I don't think she's kind of acting differently. I think you see enough passion from her, and I think she's actually a perfect third person in this feud because you got to remember they're really putting together a weird kind of feud to begin with, and clearly this is just me kind of reading the tea leaves here. Clearly, I think they're going to keep the title on her at WrestleMania and try to start a feud with maybe Bianca and Rhea Ripley after it. And why I think that is because I think what they want to do is they say, okay, Io Sky as champion, that means any match rivalry going forward that she has, well, the title's involved, so it makes that feud really matter like times 10. Whereas they understand with Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair, you don't necessarily need a championship involved in that rivalry to really take off. So I think that's what they're trying to do, right? I think they're trying to find, okay, who is the champion because they have so much talent? Who is the champion that we could put it on where, all right, now we can have a good championship feuds. And also, who can we not have as champ that can also deliver these kind of great feuds. I mean, you're going to see some of these at WrestleMania, right? You're going to see Jade Cargill versus Naomi. There's no championship involved with that, but the storyline is built well enough, so you don't need it. And I think that's what they're trying to do is they're trying to find out, okay, how can we get more good feuds rather than if Rhea Ripley's the champion and she's involved in a good feud, well, you might be wasting that championship, right? Whereas with Io Sky, the fans did cheer when she got that. And so I think her character is fine. I think she's kind of playing who she is, which is, the strongest version. And I don't think if she just was like, okay, I got to act, more passionate about stuff, it would be a better story. So thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time. All right, everyone. So Kevin Owens spoke out on hearing about the injury news before he was actually even able to announce it. So why they reported it early. Here's what he had to say. We're reading from WrestlingNews.co. Yeah, it really annoys me. Actually, I woke up seeing that it was already leaked, and it really upsets me, especially because I know that whoever leaked it, some office employee that shouldn't know this shit in the first place. And I told people like this is gonna leak. They're like, no, no, we're keeping it tight knit. But then yesterday, obviously, some departments had to find out for some reasons, and now someone who shouldn't know this stuff found out and it went where it shouldn't, and now they took away my right to tell people because now everybody knows already, so I know. It's interesting because you never really think of that, how some of these leaks, because we cover, various different things. And we would have covered this leak, but we didn't get the video out in time. So but you can understand why he would be upset about this. This is kind of a big deal. He wants to be able to control the story himself. He wants to be able to say exactly what he wants to say, because when you just have kind of the leak, well, that leaves a bunch of questions. That all that does is leave questions. So I understand why he's upset. And this really is one of the saddest stories, in quite some time, because Kevin Owens has been phenomenal over the past few months. And what was going to happen at WrestleMania between him and Randy Orton was going to be so good. And I don't know where they go from here with Randy Orton and Kevin Owens. It just sucks because this is everything he's been building up to is for this great match at WrestleMania, and now we're not going to get that. So I think that stinks. Say a prayer for him. Hopefully he recovers soon and we get to see him back. I wonder if he's going to be a babyface or heel when he does return. But man, really, really sad stuff. So thank you all for watching, and we will see you next time. All right, everyone. So Eric Bischoff thinks that Vince McMahon has some interest in still working in combat sports. Here's what Eric Bischoff said. Do I see at least a possibility on paper that Vince could invest as an investor in another wrestling organization? Yeah. Here's what I know for a fact. I know for a fact that Vince is exploring opportunities in combat sports, at least as recently as about 3 months ago. So that leads me to believe that there is an interest, at least in doing something in this world of combat sports entertainment. I know this because he was dealing with someone that I was dealing with at the time, and I heard the dialogue or portions of it back and forth. So I know this to be true, and it was substantiated and confirmed by another third party, so that I know it is a fact. And that tells me if that's a fact, then there's sure a possibility. Vince is 78 years old. I don't know what kind of condition he's in right now. I know he's gone through some back issues and stuff like that, but he probably feels like he's 35. The fact that he's 78 isn't going to slow him down. Vince will work until the day he draws his last breath. He's passionate. He loves to be busy. He loves a challenge. And Vince loves to fight. This is one of the first things, we keep hearing all these different rumors and stories and everything about Vince, and they all seem to kind of fall apart pretty quickly. I trust Eric Bischoff, and I think that he's, telling the truth here. If that's the case, we might hear a little bit more about Vince McMahon, in some time. Now, I've been very clear on this channel. I would be stunned if Vince McMahon goes up against the WWE in any way, shape, or form. I really do. I just can't see him saying, sure, I built, this company into the biggest wrestling promotion on earth, right? It is basically in the eyes of the vast majority of people, it is wrestling. Okay. You talk about wrestling, people think WWE, right? Even though you have TNA and AEW and the indie scene and all of that, for your average viewer, wrestling is the WWE. I would be stunned to see him say, oh, I'm going to challenge that in any way by either investing in one of these other companies or starting another one or something like that. I would just be stunned to see that. Now, maybe he does love the business so much, or maybe he just loves to fight so much that he's willing to do that. But considering his age and considering kind of the hurdles he'd have to get over, whether it's money, I mean, think about it. He's a billionaire, right? But even that doesn't, scratch the surface of what WWE has at its disposal. So I just don't know what he would be necessarily doing? Like, what's the point in doing that? Could I see him attempting to try to get back in the company in some way? Sure. I don't know if there's any avenue for him to do that. Probably not. But that would, to me, make more sense than him starting his own thing. Now, to be fair, though, if he did start his own thing, you get so many eyeballs on that, at least initially. Maybe that's one of the reasons he thinks it could work, but we will see what he does. So, thank you all for watching, and we will see you next time. All right, everyone. So, Kevin Owens revealed when he thinks his injury happened. Here's what he said, reading from WrestlingNews.co. So I know for a fact there's a specific moment because in December I did a full body MRI just on my own for curiosity, just to like make sure, to see if there's anything that I should be aware of, and it kind of the thing where like, yeah, you could see if you have any issues with your bone structure or whatever, or even like, organs, anything like that. And at the time, the report came back that my knees were shit, but I've been well aware of that for a long time. So there's no concern there. There's something about my spine and, mild to moderate stenosis, which for what we do, and I showed it to the WWE doctor. I'm like, yeah, for what you guys do, everyone's got a level of stenosis. Everyone on earth walking around has a level of stenosis, but yours is your spine and your neck, and everything looks good. Everything looks good for what you've been doing. You are fine, so great, and I felt great. But then in January, I had a match, and in the match, two things happened that really jarred my neck, and that's when the issue started. So I knew there was something, and then we ended up doing an MRI this week and found out, yeah, it's serious. So yeah, I think that match in January is what did it because I had an MRI a month before that and everything looked fine. Man, this is tough. It really is tough, because Kevin Owens is such a great guy, and this storyline was so good, and fans were behind it. His character has been perfect. He's had, you know, huge rivalries over the past few months with Sami Zayn, with Cody Rhodes, now with Randy Orton, and they're all awesome matches. Even if they're not in some of the main events, they're still awesome. When they are in the main event, they're fine, they're great. But even not in the main event, you could say they're one of the better matches on the card. And to have him get hurt like this, and to have him, have been hurt for so long, I don't know. Maybe if he had caught this sooner, maybe it wouldn't be something where would he need to have this surgery or something. He could maybe have fixed it without that. But man, this stinks. To hear him kind of talk about it really breaks you. Because it really is just like, man, this is not. I'm so used to in WWE, knowing okay, this is like scripted. We're fine. There's nothing, too bad here. But with this, you just know it's not has nothing to do with it being scripted. This is really Kevin Owens, right? So thank you all for watching, and we will see you next time.